Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another show of Harmonics. Today's guest is one of the great photographers of our time, Pat Johnson. Pat, how are you, brother?
I'm good.
Man, you're looking good. You got your Cleveland hat on and everything?
I feel Cleveland-y today.
That's good, because you love Cleveland, don't you?
Yeah, it's my hometown, and no matter where you grow up, that's always your hometown, sort of, you know?
It's always your hometown. We're going to talk about your book. This is Pat Johnson's book, and it's a blue-collar photographer is the title. This man has taken so many pictures of so many artists, athletes, rock stars, rappers, you name it, he's done it. And some of his work is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So we're going to get down and talk to Pat about some of the people that he took pictures with. And so, Pat, what do you think of this book?
I'm really proud. The title Blue Collar comes for a couple reasons, but one of it is I've just been a working stiff. So I would do, like when I shot Blue Voodoo, I'd just shoot it. We'd go over the pictures. Oh yeah, that's the shot. And then you're on to the next one. And so I never really sat down and evaluated my work, and I had a couple of gallery shows, but this puts it all into perspective into one place, and it really makes me realize that I did something special.
You definitely did something special. When you first got into it, who helped you maneuver into the scene that you're in? Because there's an array of great artists. Who was the guys that actually got you in to do this kind of work, what you've been doing?
There was a bass player from Santana named Doug Roach. And this was the Caravanserai, the great Santana era. And to make a long story short, we became friends. He invited me to be his guest on Winterland New Year's Eve, 1973.
Wow.
And I'm a 22-year-old kid from Cleveland. I was like, and I was working at a photo lab, so I kind of had aspirations to be a photographer, but I didn't know what that meant. And so I bring my camera, and I didn't believe my name was going to be on the list, but it was. So I go there, and I go up front, and it was like Latin night. It was Santana, Malo, Sapo. I think Herbie Hancock might have played in this new band called Journey. And I look up, and they were the opening act. And I look up, and there's Neil Sean and Greg Rowley from the original Santana.
Yes.
And I look, and I go, wow, that's... So I take like 3 or 4 pictures, just as an aside, of Journey. Don't shoot any in Malo, Sapo, because, Santana, I want to save all my film. This was film. And I got this one shot of Neil Sean that Doug Roach brought to Herbie Herbert, Journey's manager. And Herbie loved this photo, and so did Neil. And in a roundabout way, he asked me if I wanted to be their Journey's official photographer. I was 22 years old. I didn't know what I was doing, but and I learned how to be a photographer. Like other kids went to school, I went to Journey.
Wow. So that isn't the glow shot, was it?
Yeah.
That was the original glow shot? So people, if you don't know that, if you went to or you looked at the Hall of Fame induction of Journey, the first thing that you see before they come up on stage is Pat Johnson's picture, which they call the glow. It was Neil Sean. When I watched it on TV, I said to my wife, that's Pat Johnson's photo right there. How did that make you feel when you seen that on, they use your picture on that moment?
Well, Herbie called me and said, hey, Pat, you got to watch this because when they come out, they're using the glow. And I get misty right now. I almost brought tears to my eyes because, it's gone full circle. And I've never thought I was anybody spectacular. I was just a guy doing a job, and that was really touching to me.
Oh, it just vibrated through me. I know you've taken a lot of different pictures, and I'm going to be looking in your book. And I've been in your studio. You've taken pictures of Blue Voodoo, like you said earlier. David Bowie. Tell me a little story about David Bowie and you.
I worked with David 3 different times, but the main time was in 1991, and it was a private event, and at Slim's, the concert at Slim's, and we went around, took a bunch of photos. And then there was a dinner before the concert for private radio programmers. And when it was all said and done, it was time for me to sit down and have dinner. There was nowhere to sit, so the only spot open was next to David Bowie up on the dais. I go, okay, and what the hell do you say to David Bowie? That's Ziggy Stardust, you know.
Exactly.
You know, that's David Bowie. And I look at him and go, hey man, my name's Pat, and we'd worked all day together, so he knew. And I go, I'm from Cleveland. And Cleveland broke, WMMS, Billy Bass broke the Ziggy Stardust tour in the album.
Amazing.
And so he, whoa, Cleveland. And then just like that, for an hour, we just sat and chatted. And it
So
was,
you became his friend.
yeah. And then I shot him again in 2002. And we were backstage, and I had brought the split shot that you talked about.
Yes.
And I gave him a print of that, and a print of Marcel Marceau, close-up of Marcel Marceau's face with no makeup. And from what I heard, Marcel Marceau was one of his mentors, idols, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he looks at these pictures and goes, wow, and he calls the guy and says, take care of these. And I, fool that I am, I go, hey, David, would you be interested in writing my forward for, I'm going to do a book someday? And he looks at me and goes, like, what? Who are you? You know, I'm quizzically, like, you know, I'd only met him like 11, 12 years earlier,
right,
for an hour. And he looks at those pictures and he goes, you know what? When you get the book done, send it to me. I would probably consider it. And he gave me his personal number. I put it in a drawer.
Wow.
And he died. So, but I got Joel Selvin.
Yes.
Who's a great.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's a better writer than David Bowie.
I'm sure he is. Yes.
So,
Joel is.
Yeah, he did
quite.
the introduction, and it's like spectacular. Joel nailed it. Nailed it.
There's a picture in here too that I thought was quite amazing of Iggy Pop, excuse me, because we were talking about David. So what was that like? Was that in San Francisco too?
Yeah, I had seen Iggy growing up in Cleveland. There was a Cincinnati Pop Festival, and we all went there and squirreled up front to see Traffic. And the famous picture of Iggy on people's shoulders pointing, we were there. I was there. I'm on, down at his feet, and I have the outtakes of me right there. So I like loved Iggy, and he was playing in I believe it was 2003, and there was a photo pass for me and supposed to be one for my son Casey. And we get there, and we're sitting backstage with the radio station people, Steve DiNardo, one of the greatest people in the world, and there's no photo pass for my son. I'm thinking, how cool is this to be in the pit with my son? And DiNardo sees that. He's a big boss. And he drops everything and goes and makes sure my son gets a photo pass. You know, you gotta love Steve DiNardo.
Oh, you gotta love that. There's a picture of that you also have in your book, and I'm going to just chase it around because we got a lot of stories. There's a picture of you, not you, but it's Tony Bennett and Elton John together.
Yeah.
How was that done? Was that in Frisco?
Yeah. Yeah, I believe it was a Gavin convention, but to be honest with you, I don't really remember. You know.
Jeff Beck.
Oh, that was for Epic Records. It was a day on the green, and the live shot is Neil Schon of Journey, Jeff Beck, and Carlos Santana on stage together, right? And so they're backstage hanging out, and I got to get the shot. And I go up and go, hey, can I get a couple shots here? And he gives me a dirty look, you know, like I'm annoying him, but I got the shots.
Good for you.
You know.
You did a shot also, which the reason why I'm bringing it up, I just seen Elvis Costello was on the Jeremy Fallon show with Madonna, and you did a great shot with
Nick Lowe.
Nick Lowe and Bonnie Simmons, who everybody loved back in the day. Were you obviously you were in the studio at that time, right?
It was in the radio station.
Right. I mean, it's amazing.
And they were playing that punk thing up there. Their tour guy was yelling, you know, hey, you know, like doing that whole like tough guy punk thing.
Right.
You know,
John Fogerty.
Loved him. You know, that was for a BAM magazine. That was one of the interior shots for a BAM magazine cover. He was such a nice guy, and his music is timeless. Creedence is timeless.
Timeless, man. It's just it just goes on, and I just heard this, you know, Take Me Out I'm ready to go. You know that song about
me in,
baseball.
coach.
Yeah, it just that opening line. Put me in, coach. It just he's really an American treasure.
Yeah,
I
he
think
is.
you did a lot of work with also rappers.
Yeah.
There was an incident that you were involved in, and that was who was that? LJ.
LL Cool J.
Yes.
I was the photographer for all the summer jams when hip hop was really new.
Right.
And so there was a summer jam, Cameo Summer Jam, on Saturday in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, and then they flew. A bunch of us flew down to L.A. and did the summer jam at Irvine Amphitheater. And the Grape Street Crips all gang rushed the gate, and there was like 90 or 100 of them, and everyone knew that they were there, and everyone knew that there was potential trouble to happen, and at some point, LL Cool J's performing, and out in the crowd, you start seeing all this action going on, and it turned into a big fight between the Crips and the Bloods, and I mean, bloody, violent.
It was new, worldwide news.
Yeah, the concert was canceled. We watched the Nation of Islam and the security guys go out there, and it's like they're fighting. There's a video on. It's like 4 minutes long if you want to see something staggering. It's, Grape Street Crips, Irvine Amphitheater. It's mind-boggling. People getting the shit beat out of them. And everyone rushes the stage, and everyone, so like I lose my 14-year-old son. We're all running for our lives. It was amazing.
And you got out.
I got out. Yeah. No, none of us got hurt.
That's good. That's good. I know a lot of people did. I have seen that film, and it's pretty amazing. It was violent. It was really violent. Throwing chairs, breaking things.
They had one guy that they were trying to pull him up off the stage to security, and the other guys are pulling him. He's naked, and he's like this, stretched out, and the Crips are jumped up, and they're kicking him in the face. Yeah, it's like unbelievable.
Unbelievable. So we're going to do it to another thing, to an unbelievable. At one time, you were in a limo with, Dennis Wilson.
Oh yeah, Dennis Wilson.
And things changed rather rapidly in that car, right?
Yeah, he was such a cool dude. He was like just what you expected, the Southern California, kind of happy-go-lucky surfer guy, And we're driving to San Jose, and he goes, "Hey, you guys want to smoke a joint?" And we go, "Nah, no thanks." Me and Joel Newman, the Epic guy, is promoting his album Pacific Ocean Blue in 1978, I believe, 77. And he smokes the joint and goes, and turns into this moody character and I took this photograph that I've had in gallery shows, and he looks like Charles Manson. And I've had people go up to the gallery owner and ask him to take it down because it's too disturbing. I love that.
And that's the first thing my wife seen when I showed her the book. Victoria said, "Man, it reminds me of Manson."
He hung out with Manson.
And I said, exactly. Yeah. Let's go into another genre, blues. John Lee Hooker.
Well, he's a legend. I mean, I shot him a couple times, but the one shot that's my most famous is I had him look up into the umbrellas, and the umbrella lights are in his glasses, and he's dressed to the nines.
He's dressed to the nines.
He looks so cool with his shark skin suit and his hat,
Oh, you did some great. I'm going to talk to you you have Lou Rawls.
Yeah.
James Brown and Barry White on the same pages, 2 pages. What was that like shooting those 3?
Lou Rawls, my close friend Alan Benfield Bush is a hairstylist, and he was his hairdresser. Right? So Alan flew me down, and I did the whole series of him cutting his hair. And then we had to have the finished product. James Brown, I mean, I shot him a number of times, but he was you had to call him Mr. Brown. Right?
Serious?
Yeah, you did. And there's a story behind that. And he comes in, and I go, "Oh, Mr. Brown." I have two people that I admire with similar names. From Cleveland, the great Jim Brown, the running back from the Cleveland Browns. Yes. And James Brown. And he had this hat on, and he points to my hat and goes, "I love them Atlanta Braves." If I had milk, I'd have snotted it out my nose. I would have been Atlanta Braves.
Oh my goodness!
I think he's from Georgia.
Yeah, I think he is. Ronnie Montrose.
I love Ronnie. He was a good friend of mine. what a tragedy, you know, to die so young. I loved Ronnie. I shot him a bunch of times, the album covers, and he you know, it's before digital and Photoshop, and we hung this. He had a drawing of a plane that he made up, and so I went and had it had a artist make it out of foam core. Excuse me, and then I lit it with all kinds of projectors, and with pictures I had taken off of walls, and then rear projected a picture he had of the sun, and hung it on wire.
And that's one of the covers, isn't it?
One of his covers, yeah. And he had to make it light it so that you couldn't see the wire. There's no Photoshop at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's quite a story itself.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson.
I loved Michael Jackson. I know he's controversial and all, but I don't care. I spent 3 days with him promoting the album when the Jacksons album, when they left Motown and signed with Epic. And we went around town promoting the record, going to radio stations and taking pictures and whatnot. And a couple things that stuck with me deeply. One was he asked me, we get in the car together, whatever, in limo, and he goes, "What'd you do last night, Pat?" And I go, "Well, I played softball." And he goes, "Did you win?" And I go, "Nah, we got beat, but I threw a guy out at third." And this is a true story. And he goes, well, and he was interested because he could, they were all athletic,
right,
but they were on the road so much they couldn't play. So he kind of dug hearing someone else's story. Then he turns and said, "Do you have not right after, but in the point of the 3 days, he goes, do you have a girlfriend?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "What's her name?" I go, "Denise." And in those days, you could get a Hot 100, in the radio station had this piece of paper with the Hot 100 songs.
Yes.
And he grabbed one of those from wherever we were. And Michael Jackson himself went around and had Marlon, Tito, and all of his brothers sign this thing. I didn't ask him to do it. I didn't do it. He did it. Michael friggin' Jackson. And, Denise passed away 10 years ago. And my daughter, Nicole, loved Michael Jackson. Of course, loved her mother. And I had that thing buried away. And last year I had it framed and with the picture of Michael Jackson, and gave it to her for Christmas, and really touched her heart.
Very touching.
And then the story of stories is they were doing an autograph signing at Jack's Music, was a record store on Haight Street, and there was same door in, same door out. And 2 weeks earlier, they had a record signing in Los Angeles, and hardly anyone showed up. So Joel Newman, my friend with Epic, had put it together and didn't really think there was a lot of people who were going to show up, and instead thousands of people show up. And it's like and they're all it's good vibes. It wasn't like bad vibes.
Right.
But the back row, as the Jacksons come in fighting through the crowd to get in, they're just about to sit. They're just sitting down, getting their pens out to sign autographs, and the back row just slowly edges forward, and the big giant plate glass windows. I'm standing right here with the camera, photographing the crowd, and it goes boom, and it explodes, and all these kids, and these were kids, come tumbling through, blood everywhere, broken glass.
Wow.
Jackson's bummed out, got up, never signed an autograph, and walked out all bummed out.
They never did.
Never did. Yeah.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah.
I've noticed that you did when Zeppelin played in Kezar back in the day. How did you get that shot? Because that's kind of looks like you're elevated somehow, or if that's just basically up. How did you get that shot?
I was elevated. It was the last time I did LSD, so I was elevated, and I stood up, went, ugh, took 4 shots. 3 of them were blurred, and I got that.
It's excellent, man. I'm great because I was there at that concert also.
Yeah.
The Bammies, you did a lot of stuff with the Bammies. I wish they would come back. I don't know if they can, but.
Well, they had one a few years ago. It was pretty cool.
So tell me about, you had your own studio. You made up a own studio?
Yeah, the Bammies people put up a big black curtain around so no one could get in. It was huge, and 10 feet wide and 30, 40 feet deep. And I hand painted the backdrops, brought cases of beer, and they'd walk the artists off the stage into my set. and no one was allowed in there except who we let in.
Right.
And so it was really cool because the Bambi and the hospitality area was packed with people. And so this was like their refuge. They could just hang, like, Santana might not have seen Ainsley Dunbar made up, and they would stand around and talk, and I had beer. So there was like a little refuge for them, and I got all these phenomenal groupings. Like there's the couple of really cool ones. One is Joe Montana, the great quarterback of the 49ers.
Yes.
With Bob Weir and Jerry Garcia, the Grateful Dead, Huey Lewis and Sheila E. And these are studio shots. They're not just grab shots with a flash.
Right.
And another one that's really cool, that's probably even more spectacular, is Bill Graham sitting in front.
Yes.
John Fogerty next to him, Metallica over here, Neil Young, John Lee Hooker, Bonnie Raitt, Robert Cray, Tad Rundgren, Chris Isaac. I'm probably missing somebody, but there's an amazing group shot.
Oh yeah, we're gonna insert this. How was it, Buckethead? So when you did Buckethead, did he just come in? You never seen his face?
No.
He was basically just with a KFC,
Yeah.
and you never seen what he looked like.
No, I have no,
Well, to this day.
Well, I read an article recently where it showed who he was, but yeah.
And so when he did, was that a studio shot, or
Yeah,
was that
yeah, same thing.
pretty amazing? Queen.
Y&T were my good friends, and they were opening for Queen. This was 1976 in Berkeley. And so, those days, I had all access. I could have shot as much as I wanted. And I shot Y&T, of course. That's why I was there. And Queen comes on, and I get ready to go start shooting them. I shot like 4 pictures and go, these guys are terrible, and left. I could have had 10 rolls of film. So these guys suck, and I left.
Do you like him now?
No.
Still don't.
I
That's
still
funny.
think they suck.
Ringo Starr.
That was a dream, in a weird way, a dream come true. It was at the BR Cone, and I got to shoot him, and my son Casey was there shooting him, with me. And then we got to go backstage, and I had to photograph him, Ringo, with Bruce, who put out
Bruce Cohen, yes.
Bruce Cohen, who produced it. And I'm standing there, and I go, I couldn't not. I go, hey, can I get a shot with Ringo? And his guy goes, okay. So I get up there, and Ringo doesn't shake hands. He
bumps.
He bumps, and we both get in there, and we do the peace sign. And the guy says, who's going to take the picture? I go, he will. So I have a picture of me with a Beatle.
A Beatle.
Taken by my son.
Oh,
So
your
how cool is
son.
Yeah.
Oh, you trifecta.
Yeah.
You want it all.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, my son took a picture of me with a Beatle. And if it wasn't for the Beatles,
There would be
Don,
probably
we
not
wouldn't.
even, we wouldn't have it.
No, the whole world would be different.
Totally different. Thank God for that. February 9th, 1964.
Yeah.
The sweet, I think she's one of the sweetest ladies. She used to play at Keystone Berkeley. She played all over the Bonnie Raitt.
I love her.
I do too.
She's such a sweetheart.
Yes.
It's a cute story. We're at the BR Cohn event. It was a charity event that Bruce Cohn, manager of the Doobie Brothers, put on for 30 years. And it was at his winery. So it was really intimate. It's a friendly affair. Backstage was just like hanging around in a winery, sort of. And I'm taking pictures of Bruce with people with the flash on. And I see Bonnie every time the flash goes, I see her go like this, cringe. She doesn't like to get her picture taken.
Oh.
So I look at her and I walk up and go, Bonnie, don't worry. I will not take your picture unless I ask you. And you could see her, this whole body went, whoosh. She goes, thank you. And I've worked with her over the years.
Yes.
She's really nice.
She's really nice. Willie Nelson, what was that like? Smoke a lot of weed with him?
I did not, no, but a lot of people did. It was again a BR Cohn thing, and his band was the Doobie Brothers was his band, and he was there to raise money for veterans. And he went around. There was a bunch of veterans, and he went around and made sure he took pictures with all these veterans. And he's a really caring guy. I don't know if that makes any sense. Just the way he treated the veterans and how much he loved and respected them.
We definitely got to respect that.
Yeah.
You got an interesting picture, and I just watched him. The James Gang just did a thing for Taylor Hawkins.
Yeah.
And that was the first time they had played in 16 years together. And it's a great, you got, and is that the hat that Joe
More
Walsh?
or less. It's not the same particular hat, but
I mean, he looked, Joe Walsh, I just love Joe Walsh.
well, he was.
You know.
I loved. When I was a kid growing up, we'd go to the bar JB's in Kent, the Kent State, and watch the James Gang. They were like the bar band.
They were the bar band.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so you love the James Gang. And,
Oh, love the
and,
James Gang.
So this is in 1997, and he's, the day before, he and I were just kind of talking about the Cleveland Indians. They were in the World Series that year, right then while it was going on. And so the next day is a golf tournament, and I pull up and I turn to my son Casey and I go, man, I wish I could get a shot of Joe in my Cleveland Indian hat. And out of the mouth of babes, he goes, well, why don't you just ask him? How simple is that, I go, hey, Joe, can I get a shot of you in my Cleveland Indian? Sure, man, because he has that voice.
Yeah, he has that voice.
Right? And he put the hat on with his crazy pants,
Yeah.
and crazy shirt.
Yeah. Great
It's
shot.
a really fun shot of Joe Walsh.
Great shot.
He's one of the best guitar players
ever.
bar none.
Ever.
Jimmy Page's legendary Sunburst Les Paul. That was Joe Walsh's guitar.
Exactly. Interesting. That's a great footnote
Yeah.
that you just said there. Paul Rogers
I love
and
him.
Mick Ralph.
Yeah, I mean,
Without those two, I mean.
I've shot the Bad Company a couple of times, but Mick Ralph's isn't always there. And Bad Company is Mick Ralph's and Paul Rogers.
Amen.
And I forgot the drummer's name, and the drummer, I love Bad Company.
Oh, Simon Kirk.
Simon Kirk, yeah.
So when you were, you've done some other things. I mean, I love the picture of Elton John and him with all the dwarfs. The dwarfs, and I think that's amazing. You did a lot of work. Also, you took pictures of one of my favorite bands, but my favorite band, really, even though they're called Fleetwood Mac, I'm from the old school. I'm
So
Peter Green.
Peter Green.
Come on.
I mean, he's a god.
He is.
I mean, yeah.
So, and when people say Fleetwood Mac, I understand the commercialized, but Peter Green, Danny Kerwin, Jeremy Spencer,
Yep.
Those guys were like, I've seen them at Fillmore a couple times, and I was just like, I was just a punk kid, and I'm going like, who are these guys?
This guy would make the guitar make you cry.
Cry.
I mean, he was Peter. I never shot Peter Green. He came out of, it's a long story that I won't get into, but he kind of went haywire like
Yes,
Brian Wilson and a drug overdose or whatever, acid overdose. But anyhow, he came back out years later, and he was playing the Fillmore, and I had to go see him, and I called up Herbie Herbert again, my dear friend Journey's manager, because I knew and I was going, Herbie, I want to photograph him. I want to do a shot backstage. Could you? And then halfway through the thing, I go, you know what, Herbie? Never mind. I want to be like 1969 again. And I hung up the phone. Never brought a camera, and I just went there and watched it. Oh man, this is Peter Green.
Peter Green.
Yeah.
I got all their albums of the original.
I've got all the crazy.
Oh, got it. They were just so great.
Yeah.
You got a picture in here. Now I'm going to go into some big band hair guys. You got Sammy with his guys. Is that in San Francisco? The picture?
Yeah. That was his. I Can't Drive 55.
Yeah,
band.
exactly.
I love Sammy Hagar. He is such a fun, happy guy. I mean, I don't know if the other side of him, but he's always been good to me. And he gave me a really cool quote for the book. It's Pat's a badass behind the lens. He's just he is what you see.
He is what you see, and you know what? He's a great person. Period. I mean, I just love the guy. I love his music ever since he was in Montrose, and even before then when he was in bar bands back in the day. That's in the mid '70s, early '70s. I love the picture of what you have of UFO because he just passed a while back. Is Pete Way from UFO. They came out just recently, and I think it's Phil Moog. He can't play. He's really sick. They're done.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it just came
Phil's
out yesterday.
a friend of mine. Really?
Yeah, he's sick. So I could actually.
We're done. Phil gave me a quote for the book, but Joel Selvin and Pamela, the editor, said no.
I wish they would have done that.
Yeah, I love Phil Moog. He's a great guy. I photographed UFO a number of times, and Pete Way was just. He was rock and roll to the nth degree.
Oh, they was really
And just they're all lovely guys, just lovely people.
two people that I really want to recognize before, because we're getting down to that point. I got to play with Charlie Musselwhite. I opened up for him in Berkeley. What a great, phenomenal. I mean, who could play like Charlie Musselwhite? What was it? Did you actually get to talk to him?
Oh yeah, a
also?
bunch of times. I photographed him. I did an album cover for him in the early '80s. I did an album cover with him and Elvin Bishop in the last couple of years. He is what you see. He's just
Elvin's what you see too.
Elton John. I love him, love him, love him. You know, he is no pretense, no guile.
Right.
No, Elvin's Elvin. He wrote a cool quote. Pat's a hell of a fella. You know, that's what he says.
I love it.
Yeah, Pat's a hell of a fella.
The guy I really miss an awful lot. Just another person that I grew up with and listening to the Dead, Jerry Garcia.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of interesting, you know, these fable stories that these guys have been in their lives. But we're going to close this with this man, to me, is probably, I don't know if I think he is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because of the Paul Butterfield, but Elvin Bishop is got to be one of the great guitar players I've ever seen in my life.
Absolutely. Underrated too.
Underrated. I had a chance. I did a show with Harvey Mandel, and I was just about ready to introduce myself to Elvin, and somebody, you know, it's Elvin Bishop.
Yeah.
You know, but I had to put that in because he brings a lot of joy. I've seen him many times with Annie Sampson. They were just a great.
Well, cute thing for me and Elvin. My first album photo that I got photo credit for was on Elvin Bishop's Juke Joint Jump. Right? That was my first album credit.
I got that.
And my most recent album credit is Elvin Bishop.
Wow.
Like 2019.
So we're going to close. I'm going to name 3 people, and you could give me a thing. There's an interesting photo, almost a sad photo to me, but it's Eddie Money. How was that? Was he deteriorating then, or?
Yeah, I mean, I shot Eddie from the beginning. Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
And this was backstage at and his whole family was there. I was doing that from that TV show, and his whole family, and he was still Eddie, trying to be Eddie, but he was
sad.
It was near the end, and that photo was just powerful.
Tommy Castro.
Love Tommy.
Tommy's great. San Francisco, yeah, man. South San Francisco boy. Andy Frazier, Free.
He came in because of the Gibson Association. I was the Gibson rep for years, and I love him. And he was so proud. He said, I created the lick for All Right Now. He was so proud of that. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
You know, Free was such a good band.
Great band. Yeah. So I'm going to close with 2 things. Letty Williams Jr. How was that? I mean, that's an interesting shot that you did here. We're going to put that in the interview, but on the inserts.
He hated the shot.
Did he?
Oh, he hated it.
I liked it.
Yeah, I love it.
And then, of course, the legendary, I think she's passed now,
Yeah, she has.
Carol Doda.
Oh, she came in a number of times. She was doing a music thing, and she also was doing the old days you could have these dirty phone numbers, 976, and she had one of those. So I've got photos of her in the Starship House holding the phone for 976, and she came in my studio doing her rock thing. She was really cool. I liked Carol.
She was a real babe. So you know what? We could go on for hours and hours with this
Don't wanna
man.
get the book.
So I'm gonna let Pat actually tell you where you could get this beautiful book that he has, and he's got it going on. So Pat, let it rip, man. Let us know where we could actually get this book.
Well, the book is called Blue Collar Photographer, and I'm really proud of it. It's my life work in the music business. And you can get it at Amazon.com, or you can get it at my website, patjohnson.com. And people are buying it and reviewing it really nice, and I'm really proud of it. I'm not a big talker about myself, but I'm proud of it. That's all I can say.
So I'm going to be the big guy that's going to talk about it. So this is a great book. Great photography in here, great pictures, timeless, a matter of fact. So really, without saying this, I'm just glad that I know Pat Johnson. I could do this for Pat, and we're brothers, and you know, it's just great. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you so much. And he is really, in my mind, a legend of what he's done with all the different people that he's done. So, in closing, I like to thank Pat for being here. And what we normally do, we give a kiss out to everybody because the world needs peace and a little bit of love. So, good night. God bless
guys.
y'all. Peace and love.